Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Robby Rowe Show. This is your host, Robby Rowland. Thanks for tuning in.
We've kind of all been taught the complete opposite, is that everything is physical. But what I want people to understand is that the game of baseball is a mental game and it's a physical game.
Your attention, please.
You're my leader.
Now listening to Clear the Mechanism.
The Robby Rowe Show.
The Robby Rowe Show.
Yeah. What is up, guys? It's your host, Robby Rowland here. Episode 51.1. Yes, indeed. Another two-part The Robby Rowe Show podcast special. Today I got my boy Diamyn Hall. You can follow him on Instagram or check out his Instagram account, Diamyn Hall, DIAMYNHALL. Dude's legit, man. Like, you'll see it multiple times with this whole week, part one and part two, where I just get fired up talking to him. You know, he's one of those infectious guys that you just want to be around. You want to surround yourself with these type of individuals who are going to motivate and inspire you to really just bring out the best in you, right? And obviously he's in the baseball space, so I mean, we kind of just hit it off and kind of go hand in hand. It's funny, like, this was our first ever like conversation together, and it was like, dude, we're boys. But no, man, we definitely a good podcast episode for you guys today. 51.1. We kind of go over his background a little bit. We talk about how he relates to his players within an individualized approach, how he demands physical consistency from really hammering down the mental side of the game. We also go into a little more detail within, you know, routines and establishing good habits and what that looks like and how he can help you as a baseball player do that. So at this time, I'd like to thank my sponsor for this episode, Aura Ring. I know you guys, most of you guys follow me on Instagram. You see that I'm posting a lot of stuff on my story. It's a really just like, it's a tracker, right? So the one thing that I absolutely love about it is the in-depth, detailed approach that it gives me when I wake up in the morning about the last night's sleep that I had, and it gives me a readiness score, and the score really is like spot on with how I'm going to approach and attack my day. After I wake up, if my readiness score is like a 30, probably not going to go as hard because my body could potentially break down or I could get hurt or whatever. But if my readiness score, like today, dude, I woke up and it was a 97, all-time high, low-key, super stoked about it. So today I'm going to absolutely get after it in all aspects. So thank you for Aura Ring. Visit auraring.com, discount code RobbyRowe12. That's auraring.com, OURARING.com, and then discount code save you $50 off your purchase. RobbyRowe12, ROBBYROW12. Also want to take this time and thank each and every one of you who are tuning in right now, who are listening. I especially appreciate the guys that decide to screenshot that they're listening to my podcast on their phone and send it to my Instagram. Mention me in a story like that. Honestly, like, that means so much to me. So I'm not telling you to do that, but I'm also telling you that I absolutely love when people do that. All right, guys. Well, that should do it for my introduction. Let's get to Diamyn Hall, episode 51.1. Appreciate you guys for listening. I hope you enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, another episode of The Robby Rowe Show. Today, I'm joined with a special guest, Diamyn Hall. Diamyn, welcome to the show, dude. How you doing today?
I'm doing good today, Robby. I appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely.
Excited to dive in.
Yeah, dude. That's one thing you can guarantee that we're going to do today, dude. I'm really excited. Honestly, I think we share very similar values, and I mean, just from looking at the stuff that you're producing on Instagram, dude, it's like you're getting me psyched up. You know what I mean? You're getting me a little pumped up, and now I want to dive in with you, dude. So
appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, before we got on air, dude, is like, I don't know much about, how you got to where you're at now. I mean, obviously, just a little background information as far as your Instagram bio. A mental coach of the game of baseball, right? And a peak performance coach at WSU baseball, minor league, NCAA high performance coach. What inspired that, dude? Like, what was kind of what was your upbringing like as far as getting you into that realm of things?
To be honest with you, man, it started off when I made this switch from football to baseball in high school. So before I started playing baseball in high school, I played football. I was one of the best running backs in the country, and I ended up having a career-ending injury where I went head first with somebody, and I was temporarily paralyzed from my neck down. Ooh. And it's like one of those things that happens to you that you're not really ready for it, but it just changes you for the better. Right. And so once that happened, I went to the doctor. They didn't clear me to play football anymore, and this was like my bread and butter, Robby. So if you can imagine, like you're playing baseball your whole life, like like your goal is to get to the league, and all of a sudden you have an injury, boom, doctor said you can't play anymore. Now you got to figure out something else to do. Right. So that's kind of the point that I was at. And then I started, I picked up the game of baseball, and I was like, I have to use my tools in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Like, God didn't give me this ability for nothing. So started playing baseball, and at first, like, I was terrible. I mean, you know how it is when when anybody starts playing this game. Like, this is a skill-oriented game, man, and It's also a mental game. So what I started realizing was that the football mentality that I had before while I played football that allowed me to be successful, it didn't translate over into baseball, if that makes sense.
Right.
And it was a matter of really figuring out, okay, now how do I really get the results that I want to get to? How do I really become as consistent as I can possibly be, especially as a hitter? Because this is the hardest thing to do in sports, right? So for me, it was a matter of kind of doing my own research and figuring out, all right, what is it that's going to separate me from everybody else? Because I'm at a point right now to where I have to not only catch up with my peers that have been playing their whole lives, but now I have to, if I want to become one of the best players in this game, I have to be able to pass them, right? So I was first introduced to Heads Up Baseball. I don't know if you've heard of that book, but it's by Ken Revisa and Tom Hansen.
Yeah.
That was the game changer for me. And that's when I realized how important the mental side of the game was. And I didn't understand why nobody was teaching it. Why aren't any of the coaches that I have teaching this stuff like on a consistent basis? Like, this is the key. So what I started doing was my bookshelf started to grow with other books like Heads Up Baseball. You got like the mental ABCs of hitting, the mental ABCs of pitching.
Boom. Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm talking about all of those, man. And those completely changed the way I perceived the game, and they changed the way I approached the game, and they changed the results that I was getting on a consistent basis. So that's how I kind of got into it. And from there, I became so obsessed with it. Started teaching it to my teammates, you guys who are now in the league. Started teaching it to, my coaching staffs that I was a part of, the coaches that were coaching me, right? And then I eventually knew, like, this is what I wanted to do, but I didn't know, like how I was going to be able to do it. And I'm like, how is there nobody, like, you have hitting coaches, you have pitching coaches, you have sprint coaches, you got base running coaches, you got strength and conditioning coaches, but you don't have anybody that's like baseball oriented, so to say, that's teaching this stuff other than these gurus like Ken Revisa and my mentor, Dr. Marr, who's with the Indians, and other guys who are really, really tied to an organization. Like, there's nobody who's out here teaching this stuff. So I kind of knew from that point, like, that I wanted to turn this into my career after I got done playing. And at that time, of course, as we all do as baseball players, like, I'm going to be playing for the next 20 years.
Sure.
Right. So that was the thought process. But once that started, like, coming to a close, like, I knew this is what I wanted to do, because I knew how much it impacted my game. I knew how much it impacted me as a person, as a leader. And I wanted to kind of revolutionize a little bit to where, guys didn't have to scramble around anymore, reading through this book, reading through this book, reading through that book, to figure out the answers. Because when you read a good book, it's really, really good. But now you have to, not only as a baseball player, you got to take the stuff that you learned from that book, and then you have to figure out, like, what's going to work for you. And then you have to be disciplined enough to actually apply those things. So it's basically like if I were to say, like, no hitting coaches existed at all, and every hitter from here on out, they had to figure out hitting on their own. Like, they'd read all the Ted Williams books, they'd read these books over here, they'd read Tewksbury's books, like, they'd read everything, and then they'd have a tough time figuring out, like, okay, what's going to work? Should I focus on launch angle? Should I focus on swinging down? Should I focus on this? Should I focus on that? There's just so much stuff, right? So, and that's where a coach comes into play. So I knew that this was going to be the future of the game, and I knew that I wanted to make this my career, if that makes sense.
Totally, dude. I mean, and look at it now, right? Like, I mean, I know almost every organization that I've been in, like we have a separate coordinator / assistant coordinator of like mental skills coaching, you know, and like just diving into that. I remember when I first dove into it with Pittsburgh, because like at the time the D-backs weren't too big into it, but I remember Pittsburgh, like they had 2 guys assigned for that specific area. And it was like every spring training, man, it was like, oh, we knew once, you know, Group A 9:15 rolls around, it's like we got mental skills practice, go into a room, you know, and it was like all of these things, man, like all of these little tiny tools that you can implement. But so what you said, like, and I want to dive into this particular thing is how everyone as an individual, especially in the game of baseball. And as you know, man, like some things click for me, which may not click for you, vice versa, all the time, right? So, I mean, is that kind of similar as far as like the mental game goes as well? Like, I mean, if I read mental ABCs, I can maybe perceive that totally different than someone else, right? So, is it something as far as like your characteristics having to like identify, okay, how can I interpret to the best that I know how, and then apply it?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where my goal to revolutionize this comes into play, because as a mental skills coach, as a high performance coach, as a mental conditioning coach, as a peak performance coach, whatever name you want to use, it is a matter of understanding like not only the game of baseball from my perspective, like you have to understand the game of baseball, and you have to understand like that individual, and then what does work for him and what doesn't work for him. And I think if you look at it just like from a hitting coach's standpoint or a pitching coach's standpoint, the thing that makes them like really, really good is that they're able to understand the individual. They're able to understand their mechanics. They're able to understand how they do things. You see, but it's just a matter of really honing down on individualizing everything. And that's one of the problems that I have seen from the outside looking in. Because, you know, I'm working with quite a few professional guys. Like guys either fly me out, and that's a very high cost. They either fly me out to come work with them one-on-one, and that consists of actual like physical work as well. But we're just integrating the mental side of the game into everything that they're doing. Or I'm working one-on-one with guys online, professional guys online, or college guys, and it's a matter of really individualizing everything. And for me, it's been a process of literally reading all of these books and understanding all of these books to a T, understanding all the concepts, and now being able to to even like watch a guy on video and to know whether or not he understands the importance of routines, of pre-pitch routines, of these things. But I think the next wave of things is kind of going to be moving towards, well, at least what I want to continue pushing it towards is that the mental side of the game or mental skills are not something that help. They're not something that help. They're not something that you need to do once you struggle. Mm-hmm. Like to me, my personal belief, Robby, to be honest with you, is that in order to 10x your consistency on the field, in order to 10x your results on the field, the only way to do that is if you master the mental side of the game. Like that's my belief to the max. And what I've learned is that think about the things that we want as baseball players. We want to become consistent. We want to get results. We want to have consistent confidence. We want to be the clutch guy. We want to have the clutch gene. We want to have consistent growth. We want to enjoy the game. We want to make progress. We want to be leaders. All of these things come from mastering the mental side of the game, from my standpoint, from my personal perspective. This is what I've learned.
Totally.
And I think that a lot of guys have been. I mean, we've kind of all been taught the complete opposite, is that everything is physical. But what I want people to understand is that the game of baseball is a mental game and it's a physical game. And it's a matter of bringing both of those two things together and understanding that they're interconnected and that they're a part of the same thing. Like you can't do anything with your body without your mind. You can't do anything with your mind without your body. You see what I mean? So
totally.
I just think we're moving from not only the stigmas that have been put on the mental side of the game for so long, but we're also moving away from the generalization of stuff. And I want to kind of continue to be the forefront of that and push this stuff.
Well, dude, I think you hit on it. And I know I literally can speak from experience, man, is because it's something that you don't think about, right? We have our skill orientation. We have our talent that's natural. We have skill that we can just develop over time. And as we proceed, into our goals, we're just constantly harping on our skills. I got to throw more bullpens. I got to hit more BP, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
And then we don't really ever think about that mental side because we're so focused on, building our skill orientation. And then once that adversity hits, it's freaking, it's back to the drawing board, and you're like, okay, well, where am I deficient at, right? Like, it's not these skills because I know I'm good, but for some reason, when I get out there, I'm like in quicksand, right? Like, the harder I'm trying, the more I sink and the more I sink. So, I mean, like with what you said, dude, as far as it's not something, that we have to do once we fail. Like, why not do it throughout that whole process? So then if adversity does come our way, we're like, hey, this is, we're good. We got all these tools.
Exactly. And I think that, to be honest with you, I think the main reason for that thought process with baseball players is just because of what we've been taught from a young age. I mean, we've been taught that the physical skills are everything, which they are. But I think the foundation of physical consistency comes from mastering your mind first. Like, that's the foundation of everything. You can't build a really, really tall building without the foundation being darn near perfect.
Oh, dude, I talk about foundation all the time on this show. Yeah, so you're on it.
And to me, this is the foundation right here.
Right.
Like, you can have the perfect swing in the world. You can have perfect mechanics. You can have perfect. You can be the most physically fit guy in the world. But let me tell you something. If I sit a guy right next to you that looks just like you and who can literally do everything you can do, and I clone you and I sit him next to you, and we figure out what's going to separate you two, it's going to end up being your brain. It's going to end up being your mental skills, like whether or not you're able to come through in the clutch, whether or not you're able to focus on the process when everybody else is focusing on just getting a result,
dude.
Right?
And
it's the separator.
Yeah, and sorry for interrupting. I'm probably going to do that a lot just to warn you because I get passionate about this stuff. But
me too, man.
another thing on this show that I talk a lot about, or I talk to a lot of baseball trainers, strength and conditioning guys, all about building up our skill as far as our coordination or our strength or whatever it is, and we're constantly building that up. And we are seeing it in a day and age in baseball right now in 2018, almost 2019, that everyone is so freaking good, man. Like everyone coming out of that pen is 95 plus. Every hitter 1 through 9 in the big leagues is, can hit a ball over the fence with pretty much ease. It doesn't matter if they're 5'5" or 6'5". And at some time, and you said it, in the beginning of the show, was you need to find something that is going to separate yourself. And I try to tell a lot of kids that, man, is even if you're a showcase guy and you're going to a lot of showcases and you have the ability to do that, then you can't be just one of the pack. You can't just be one of the guys. You'll go unnoticed. You got to have something that separates you. And if it's that mental capacity of being I believe that I can do this. I believe that I'm going to do that, and I mean that alone is, going to set you above 90% of the guys that already have probably a higher physical capacity than you, right?
Exactly. And to me, to be honest with you, Robby, everything that I've learned through the guys that I've worked with, through some of these high level performers that I've worked with, they understand that this is the separator between them and everybody else. They fully understand it. But again, it goes back to the things that we've been taught from a very young age through the baseball society or through the baseball community. And this kind of comes from conventional wisdom. And it everything always starts with let's figure out your mechanic. Let's get your swing right. And these things, I'm not saying that's wrong at all, but it's a half truth. It's a half truth. The other half of it is let's get your mind right. So now everything that you do master with your swing, it's translatable to the game. Because to me, that starts with the mind too. You can have a perfect swing in the cage. You can be a showcase guy. Yeah. But what's going to make everything translatable is your understanding and your awareness of where your mind comes into play and what you have to do mentally to be consistent with those things that you've mastered within your preparation. Do you see? So
totally.
And I think it's just a matter of guys not having access to conversations like this. Guys not having access to coaches that do this, because like you said, like almost every organization that you've been a part of, they have mental skills staffs.
Yeah.
But when you go down to college baseball, last year I was the first person in college baseball history to do this. And to everybody else, it's awesome. But to me, for the game of baseball, it's like, that's not awesome.
Right.
That means we're behind.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, a lot of common sense comes in there, right? Because it's like, okay, what is like the one thing that you see on TV every time? Yeah, you see obviously the physical ability, but we play a game that is built around failure, man. So you're telling me that each and every one of these guys that we're seeing in the big leagues, at some point they are going to hit adversity. They're going to hit difficult, rough patches. They are going to have their days, if you're a pitcher or a hitter alike, where you don't feel good, your swing feels bad, your mechanics feel out of whack, your timing's all messed up, you breathing out of the wrong eyelids and all that crap, and like your physical ability is going to waver, right? That could be a roller coaster sometimes. But it's like, to me, man, and you said it earlier, dude, like, the freaking mental side of it, that's something that we can actually control, right? I mean, the big thing I like to say a lot is like, control the controllables, man. And
exactly.
that's something that we can do each and every day. And on that topic, dude, I kind of want to pick your brain as far as like, what's your routine look like, man? I know you're a big preparation guy, myself as well. So, I mean, what's your routine as far as, you waking up, you got a busy day, like what are some of the tools that you're utilizing to really get your brain in check?
So for me, I like to prime my mind for success, and it sounds super simple, but my priming, you can think about like visualization, things like that. But it's basically training your mind to achieve the results that you want to eventually achieve. So for me, when I look at even during my career, I was training my mind to be able to eventually do this, and now I'm here. Mm-hmm. Now I'm doing it because I trained my mind for so long that this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to get it done. I strongly believe that everything happens twice. It first happens in your mind, and then it happens in real life. And there are studies that prove, visualization. And to be honest with you, some of these things are like, when guys hear like visualization, like, oh, it's not really a big thing. Like, it's and I'll tell you the reason why is because the people that have taught them these things were probably either really, really cheesy, they didn't understand the game of baseball, or they're very unrelatable. And obviously, as you know, with anything, if you don't have those three things within a coach, like the message probably won't resonate with you. But what I've been able to learn, even about like small things like visualization, and to be honest, this is just one of those small little tools that can add to your success on the field and off the field.
Totally.
But I've used it because I know that the research shows that 1 minute of visualization equals 7 minutes of real practice. Like, your muscles actually fire. When you visualize yourself going through something, if you do it the right way. And then the back end of it is like, I usually hear the first time I introduce visualization to a guy, he's like, man, like I've always had a tough time visualizing.
Right.
And I always go like, no, you don't. No, you haven't. You've just been taught it the wrong way. If you think about whenever you have a dream, Robby, have you ever had a dream like where you fell from the sky, or you're getting chased?
Oh, I jump. Oh, yeah.
You jump. You wake up. You're sweaty, right? Like, all of these things like are happening like physically, but it didn't really happen in real life. Like, totally. That's a form of visualization right there. Whenever you get out of a game and you hop on the phone with somebody you talk to your games about after every game, right? And you start explaining to them like, hey, yeah, so today I went 1 for 4. Or I did this, and this. Like, images are coming up in your mind, and you're remembering the things that you did. That's visualization right there.
Totally.
It's that simple. But people who are teaching these things, again, and not to throw rocks at them, but I've just seen it so much. They talk so much about the things that we don't really care about as baseball players. Like, to be honest with you, like, I don't spend time telling guys about the research behind this, and this, because they already know that this is an important piece. And I think when we dive into it and we teach guys about the mental side of the game, especially baseball players, like, we're able to spot out anybody who is not necessarily like cheesy, but we're just like different than football guys and basketball guys. Like, we see things differently. We're some of the most confident people in the world. But I think it's just a matter of really explaining things in the simplest way possible. Like, that's what I've found has made me so successful and separated me from everybody else. I'm able to take a really complex concept like visualization, and by the end of the conversation, within 5 minutes, guys are like, oh, you're right. Like, I can do that. Now let me give you the structure. Let me give you the visualization workouts you need to do on a consistent basis that are baseball specific.
Totally.
For hitters or for pitchers, you know? So
totally.
Again, it just comes from me wanting to revolutionize this and wanting to be the forefront of innovation when it comes to these things.
And a part of that is I'm going to speak from like the pitcher side. Obviously, I think for pitchers, man, it's visualizing success, visualizing what your ball needs to be doing, or visualizing the spot, the area that you want to throw, visualizing like all of that stuff before you even throw the ball is obviously it's crucial. I think a lot of guys, what they do is they throw bullpen after bullpen after bullpen after flat ground after catch play, and they just start thinking that if they just do more of that and they start seeing like certain pitches go somewhere, and they're like, okay, I'll just repeat that specific quote unquote feeling that I had, and then we'll just go off that. Dude, I'll tell you what, man, like the obsessive like weirdo that I am, I started doing 30 minutes of towel over my head in the trainer's room, meditation before my starts. And it was like, dude, 10 minutes was clear thought, and then like 20 minutes was I picked out every guy 1 through 9. And I said, okay, I'm visualizing that at bat. Okay, boom, we're starting them off with a 4-seam down and away. Nailed it, stuck it. Now we're going 2-seam in, and just like putting you into that game situation. So then when you do get in that situation, like you said about that body awareness, man, your body responds to that in a way of like, oh, we've already been here, dude. There's no reason to be worried in this position. Like we already freaking got into this second and third 1 out, 4-hole hitter up jam, and we struck 2 guys out in a row. So we're good. I mean, like, That's again, that's going back to like everyone's routine. I've met, and I'm sure you've met plenty of guys along the way that, they're just so physically talented, and they don't even have a thought in their mind about why would I need to visualize? Like, I'm just better.
Exactly. Absolutely. And then my answer, and I've had a few of those guys, even a few guys that I'm working with right now, they know.
Sure.
They know who they are, but they're some of the best in the game. And it gets to a point to where I explain it. I just like say, so if that's where you are, then imagine where you could be if you have these tools and these weapons in your pocket as well. Like, it'll just make you that much better. I can think about, and again, like I said before, like, I strongly believe that the mental side of the game is the only way to 10x your consistency and then 10x your results, and to minimize quote unquote slumps or struggles, like, because now we're preparing beforehand, before that adversity hits, as opposed to let's wait till that adversity hits. Now I'm in a place where I'm struggling. Now I should go find somebody like Diamyn. Like, no, like let's treat it just like you're trying to build your team of people who would give you the best information possible in every segment of the game. You have the best pitching coach that you go to in the off season. You have the best strength and conditioning coach that you go to into the off season. You have the best nutrition and diet coach that you have over here. And then you add the mental aspect to it, which is unfortunately has been the last piece for these past, 20, 30 years. But I don't know. My goal is to make it one of the top pieces, one of the most valued pieces.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, well, it's not quantifiable. You can't put any numbers with it. And my answer is always, well, that means it probably matters more than the things you can put numbers to. I mean, we talk about leadership all the time as coaches. we talk about discipline all the time as players. We talk about dedication, right? We talk about preparation, but these are all things that we talk about more than numbers that don't have any quantifiable numbers that can go along with them. Do you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know, just from like common sense, like I've throughout, experiencing life and in baseball, like the most important things are always the things that you cannot attach a number to because they're not fully figured out by human beings, So once we can start training those things, like once we can start, training leadership. And now there are different strategies and different steps you can take to increase those things, but it's still not a thing where, hey, this guy over here, like, what are his leadership numbers? Like, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, every organization values a leader and knows what a leader is. So that's just one of those things where we are right now in a data-driven in a data-driven world, which is not bad at all. Like I'm 100% for it, but I think that again, if the foundation of the mental side of the game isn't there, now it can send you a bunch of different directions. These numbers can. So that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I correlate that too. I mean, yeah, you can classify this as like a leadership quality, but clubhouse guys, right? Like, I mean, that's a popular term that we hear often in
absolutely
in college, especially pro ball. Man, is like, if you're a good clubhouse guy, you're automatically valued, right? And I think there's a high level of importance, depending on which team you are, for the whole motor or the whole car to run. Like, there's got to be a lot of moving parts within that vehicle that's got to click, And I think there's got to be a captain. Like I said, if you want to go straight to the leadership quality, but not even so much leadership, just having a guy that is backing up his teammates, giving the slap on the butt, like
exactly.
Those type of qualities, man. There's no number that you can have for it, but I guarantee you, just being in professional ball for X amount of years, you see it. Why has this guy got a spot? He's hitting 220. Well, frick, man, he's a heck of a teammate, dude, and he does those little things to make that engine run, and allow that team to function, and
exactly.
it doesn't necessarily have to be the high the physical skill capacity for that individual, but just the way he carries himself and all that stuff. But I want to talk about leadership, man. Obviously, is something a high importance, especially in the game of baseball, man. What are would you say, like, you have specific things that you do with like a one-on-one guy that you're like, hey, we're trying to grasp leadership qualities and we're trying to teach those? Or is it something that just comes like a natural, you hear a lot about like natural born leaders?
I think that leadership is a skill, just like everything else. Now, I do think that everybody gets a little bit of sprinkle in different areas, as far as, some guys may be more outgoing based on their genetics. Some guys may be, more so introverts, right? Like those kind of things. But at the end of the day, like, leadership in general, I believe, is a skill. It's something that you have to eventually learn. And when I think about leadership, I think about guys like Phil Jackson. I think about guys like Bill Belichick. Like, those things over time were learned, that their communication skills, like, right, their ability to relate to people. Then now that may be something that is like, based on people's experiences, plus the things that they were taught, like, plus the things that they've learned. Like, that's kind of a gray area. But as far as the one-on-one stuff goes, like, if a guy's goal is to get better with leadership, I have a whole list of things that will go through, that they can start applying and start, like, working on. And I'm very big on practicality, very, very big on practicality. I'm obsessed with it, to the point where it's like, if it's not practical, we're probably not going to talk about it. If it's not going to get you the results eventually within the clubhouse, within the organization, within the on the stat sheet, then we're probably not going to talk about it. Like, everything I've kind of put together and that I think about is from my end, it is to get players, better results.
Yeah.
But it comes from, it's interesting because it's kind of ironic, because in order to get those results, you have to focus on, like, the process. And for me, it's a matter of designing that process and redesigning that process for whatever guy I'm working with, if that makes sense. And that comes with like throwing in the leadership stuff. But it's a very dynamic thing for me, because I've had an opportunity throughout the course of my career to like learn about all of these things, and it was simply because I knew how important they were to success, not only in baseball but in life too. So,
yeah, dude, you mentioned, and I know this is going to get like super cliche. Now we're getting into the Joel Embiid territory when we talk about process, but
we'll break it down.
But you hear process all the time. You hear about, how can we get these guys to be process orientated, not results driven, like all of this hoopla. And I think a lot of individuals, especially, my audience, maybe, that high school, younger athletes, and they hear it and they go, yeah, it makes sense. I've been hearing it for X amount of years. Like, it's process, the things that you do to get to where you want to go. I get it. But it's more than that, man. Like, how do we get our guys, or how do we get your guys to be process orientated, right? If that makes like a very broad question, but break it down for us, man.
It's a perfect question. I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you're talking about. Everybody, I think, now is to a point where like everybody understands like the process is something that matters, but it's funny sometimes, even when I look at the coaches that talk about the process of being process oriented, they don't even know what it means. They can't even explain it. They can't even break it down. And we got to start from this is where we do have to kind of start from the foundation. Like, what is a process in general? A process in general is a set of things that add up to get you, to give you the highest probability to succeed. That's how I define it. So when you think about the process, quote unquote, like, to me, it's like, that's just the very, very broad brush. Like, there are other processes that go within that process. And so, I mean, even breaking it down to like your pre-pitch process, like that's a certain process, your pre-game process. And for me, I don't like to say, like, I replace the word routines with process, because with process or habits, because I know that routines kind of stem from superstition. So some people, when they still hear routines, like, they still think it's like, oh, that means I got to do 1, 2, and 3 to make sure that I have a good game. Like, I got to wear these socks.
Got to wear the right underwear, man.
Right. I got to make sure I eat this at this time. Like, that's not what it is. That's still a little bit of superstition in there. So that's another place where I'm trying to move people away from, move the baseball community away from, is like, I mean, we might as well just stop using the word, because that's going to
totally.
Otherwise, guys will still get confused with it. You know what I mean? So,
no, totally.
But going back to the process, it's, for me, so when I look at a hitter, the kind of questions that I would ask are like, what is your process when you're on deck? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing that has purpose behind it? And it just goes down to breaking that down into like every segment that you can possibly think of. Or so for a pitcher, what are you doing before every single pitch? What's your pre-pitch process? Like, what does that consist of? Does that consist of you visualizing yourself hitting that spot before you actually throw the pitch? Does that consist of X, Y, and Z? Like, and then we break those things down and say, okay, well, what's the purpose for this? Does this really have a purpose? Does this really, really drive you towards consistency? Like, if you do this every single time, will this process set you up for success and give you a higher probability to succeed? So when I think about the process, I really think about like those two words being at the top of a pyramid or the top of a family tree, right? And then you have other branches that go down from that are all still processes within themselves. So it sounds super confusing. If I had you on video, I'd draw it up for you on the whiteboard, but it makes sense once it's drawn up. And to me, I like, even the post I put up the other day about, focusing on the process instead of results, like, that's still very general. And
totally.
But with all the guys that I work with one-on-one, like, they know exactly what that means. They know that the process is a ton of different things that add up to giving them the best probability to succeed. But I think that we've kind of not not eyewash the words, the process, but I think that most people think the process is just like the daily grind, like the things you do.
Yeah,
like every day,
hashtag
just
the
like
grind.
Trust the process. Yeah, but when I hear people say trust the process, like before you can trust anything, before you can trust any process, you have to know what that process is that you're talking about, and then you have to find that process that works for you, and then you have to experiment with it to make sure it works, and then you have to test it after you experiment with it, and then you have to, once you figured it out, now you have to stay dedicated to that process. Now you continue to work the process throughout the course of the season, and then once you get to the season, once you get in the game, that's when you trust the process.
Give it to me, man.
You see what I'm saying?
Let's
Like,
go.
you should never, like, if guys are in the off season saying trust the process, to me, that means like you have zero idea what the process really is.
Right.
You should be working the process.
Right.
You should be experimenting with the process. You should be defining and refining your process during the off season.
And
so
I think it's so. Oh, dude, like, man, let's freaking go, dude. I'm hyped up.
Let's go, man.
I'm doing like push-ups on the floor right now. Come on, kid. But here's and this is ironic because a couple months ago I wrote a blog on process, right? And it's one of those things where you use the word eyewash, totally like could fall into that category, but a lot of people go, okay, I'm a 12-year-old kid that loves baseball, and I'm probably the best on my team, so therefore I want to be in the big leagues. That is my goal. That is my dream. I'm going to do it. I challenge those people to go, okay, man, like if that is your goal, if that is your dream, what are we going to do from the time that you decided on that dream to the moment that you step on a big league field? Like there is all that in between where we need to figure out like, okay, process, dude, like all of those things, habits, routines, like whatever you want to call it, those are specific things that we need to identify that are going to attribute to us getting better at the task at hand. And I mean,
exactly.
It's funny, man, because I know a lot of these kids listening right now, they're going like, especially after what you just said, they're like, man, like I thought you just pick up a ball and throw it as hard as you can and you swing a bat. And it's like, yo, like I say it all the time, man. Like I'm sure everyone's getting sick of me saying it, but if you want to be great at this game, or if you want to be great at anything in life, there's a specific cost. There's a sacrifice that you got to make. And it's doing these little things, man. It's like checking off all those boxes. All right, guys, that will wrap up episode 51.1. So basically what I mean by to say is that we'll wrap up part 1 of Diamyn Hall's podcast. Part 2 will be airing in about 3 days, so you can expect that on Thursday. I don't know the exact date, but yeah, expect it in 3 days from this release date. So I hope you all enjoyed that part 1. We keep that same pace in part 2, so I hope you guys tune into that one as well. So that'll do it for me on my end. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. Much love. God bless. And we'll talk to you here in a few days. Peace out, guys.